Bombay Shirt Company has created a unique position for itself in India's competitive menswear market with its custom apparel offering. Starting with made-to-order shirts in 2012, the company has expanded its portfolio to include bottom wear, jackets, and more recently, ready-to-wear clothing. And all of this is made available to its customers through a robust omni-channel sales network that includes 26 world-class offline stores. As the company scales its business, data is one of the critical tools that will become increasingly important to enable it manage the future pace of growth. In this case study, we break down how the Mumbai-based company is using constructive data to power its offline retail expansion strategy. Hello and welcome. So when you look at the entire consumer ecosystem, you might feel like it is overstimulated by the rise of quick commerce, with retail expansion sort of taking a back foot. But it's only when you tap into specific consumer data insights is when you really realize that that's only partially the truth. And that was exactly what Lightbox's experience was when they sought out to collaborate with the Bombay Shirt Company and try to figure out an expansion strategy, especially for their offline retail stores, which have expanded over different cities, different locations. And I have two people with me who have been very critical to this project, Monish Pathare from Lightbox and Nitin Luthra from the Bombay Shirt Company. So we're very curious about the entire inception story behind this collaboration between Lightbox and the Bombay Shirt companies.
At Lightbox, we try to dig deep into our portfolio companies' data to uncover insights that might be really helpful for our companies, where maybe there might be some numbers or some kind of trends that we might have seen in other companies, which we could kind of get information from and share it with our other portfolio companies. So I think this was late 2022. I was going through BSC's Shopify sales data. And one interesting trend stood out there where 10% of BSC's customers accounted for 40% of the revenues that they were generating. So the very first thing that I did was kind of dig into who these 10% customers are and where can we find more of these. And what came out of that was a segmentation of customers understand based on their frequency of purchases, their AOVs that they were spending at the brand. And I consolidated all of this and went back to BSC to share these insights with them. And that's the first time when I met Nitin as well at BSC. And funnily enough, he was working on the same problem out there.
We were also looking at how our customers behave, what are the different segments that we can find out of our existing customers, and how do we find more of those, right? The question that came to us was whether we should open our stores within the cities that we are in, or should we go to new cities?
Okay.
So for that reason, we collaborated with Munish, had a lot of meetings and calls to understand where are our existing customers coming from, and what are the other proxies that we can see that show that there could be interest from people in other cities. And the proxy that we looked at for that particular point was whether we are getting good enough conversions online from those areas. So by looking at that, we kind of finalized about 40 pin codes where we should open our stores.
At that point, retail was a big strategy for the business to expand its sales channel, right? Historically, they've done it very intuitively and they've done a fabulous job at that. But now when you're trying to expand the retail presence to the next 20, 30, 40 stores, you can't really keep doing that intuitively in existing cities because eventually you can't think of places apart from the big spots that you know in a particular city where you
Which
can
are already exhausted.
Exactly. Like in existing cities, we're already exhausted the best spots to have our offline presence, right? So I feel there was a more data-informed approach that could have come into that, which is what we had kind of discussed. And then eventually we kind of like Nitin mentioned, using website data, bringing in sales data, online sales, offline sales, and kind of getting an algorithm that would kind of give us clusters or zip codes where we should have an offline presence.
Coming to specific data sets that helped you make very conscious decisions about retail expansion, would you like to get? I think Monish, in your analysis specifically, there was website traffic data, which helped you sort of gauge where the prime location in cities where all of this will sort of work out eventually. So can you talk a little bit more about that and also other specific data metrics that help you gauge all of this in advance?
I feel Nitin did a fabulous job in breaking up the problem of how to expand, right? There are two big markets that we can tap into. One is in new cities, which is where we have no offline store presence, but we would have online sales. And then you would have existing cities where you already have an offline store network. Now the first question is, should we go into a new city or should we stay in the same city, right? Same city gives you a lot of other operational benefits, which you have existing supply chain and stuff. And in new city, you'll have to kind of build that up from scratch where the costs keep adding up. For new cities, the way we identified them was by looking at BSC's website traffic. We were looking for cities where we had large number of customers coming in, who were either making purchases, so our conversions were slightly high or equivalent to cities where we already had a store presence. So those cities would be a good target to open a store because they're performing exactly like an existing city in terms of online sales, right? The next step to that is to see, are there any high pocket dense zip code clusters where sales are significantly high? Because then we can just go open a store in that one zip code cluster, and then we would see a great, like an increase in the number of sales out there, right? That was the idea that we went in for new cities. For existing cities, the challenge is somewhat simpler. We don't need to look at website traffic, right? Because we already have offline stores. We know the map of how the sales are coming from with zip codes in the city. Now we had another challenge out here. We had to, if we were looking to open an offline store, we had to ensure that it wasn't cannibalizing from any other store. It shouldn't be that we have two stores right next to each other and both are just like giving you the same sales, right? So for that, we relied a lot on the online and offline sales by zip code in the existing cities. And within that, what we were looking for were zip codes far away from existing stores, which had a larger percentage of sales from online. The idea here was that, let's say there was a zip code which was far away from a particular store and it had a lot of offline sales. The customers in that particular zip code already were, had wanted to come to the store and purchase. So we didn't really need to double tap into that customer, right? So this was the approach that we went by to kind of open these stores.
Yeah, adding to what Monish just said, it was also a point that came up that do we need to be more convenient in terms of being closer to people, right? And that's where the data came in and helped us to understand what pin code cluster we're not present in, but the density is too high offline and online. So we took a 7 kilometer cluster, right? A 7 kilometer radius from the store, and each pin code then had its own 7 kilometer cluster. So we found that there were certain pin codes that had great revenue coming in, but we weren't present there. So that was number one, that these are the locations that we should kind of look at. And from that particular data also, what we found was that there might not be high street locations that we were used to opening. And the new thing that came in was malls. Until maybe about 2023 beginning, we didn't have any mall stores. And now we've opened about 3 mall stores until now, and they're performing at par, if not more than our other high street stores. One thing that we learned from malls is that we need to be present in the ready-to-wear category. A lot of people used to come in. So just an example, our conversion rate, average conversion rate of people walking into the stores and buying is about 90-95% in our high street stores. That's what tells you that people have already made up their mind that they'll come and buy, right? But in malls, what we saw is that this conversion rate was about 50-55%. And the biggest reason is that people come in and expect that they can pick up something off the rack. That is what happens across the mall, right? So that has given us an insight that we need to be present with inventory in stores, and that's what we're working on right now.
So when you all first collaborated in 2022, how did all of these, when you found that alignment, how did things start speeding up?
We were at about 18 stores when we started talking. By the end of 2024, we opened about 25 stores pan India, where the majority of the new stores were in existing cities, but also we looked at the new cities and we opened stores in Jaipur, Kolkata, etc. The path for 2025 is to open about 13 more stores. That will bring our tally to about 40, which is about more than 100% growth from where we started. So that's where Monish has helped us.